Oh, baby, don't you know? Your mind, when wild, is no friend. It can mock you in silence and mislead you in noise. If you don't hold its reins, it will ride you down a dark road. Tame it, teach it grace, because peace ain't passive. It's trained, it's earned. The mind is a garden, left unchecked. Weeds of doubt and fear grow wild. Yes, child, the soul speaks in petals and thorns, and what blooms in the soil of your thoughts depends on what you tend to with your time and spirit. A garden doesn't shout when it's neglected. It just grows quietly, relentlessly, and so does the mind. Every day, every breath, we plant something. A thought of kindness, and you've sown a jasmine. A seed of bitterness, and a thorn bush finds its way in. The difference, my dear, is that the weeds don't wait for permission. They sprout without your blessing, nourished by silence, watered by inaction, growing stronger with your neglect. And before you know it, the beauty is hidden. The paths are overrun. The light can't touch the soil. Fear. Oh, fear is a cunning root. It doesn't arrive loud. It tiptoes in. It says, don't try. It whispers, you're not enough. Then it watches you freeze. It watches your dreams bow beneath its shadow. Doubt is its cousin. Doubt doesn't want you to fail. No, doubt wants you to never begin. It's the enemy that wears your own face, speaks in your own voice, and convinces you that silence is safer than courage. But you were not born to let your garden rot. You were not born to carry weeds like they were flowers. You were not born to bow to your own thoughts like they were gods. There is a discipline to tending this mind, a holiness to pulling out the lies by their roots, even when your hands bleed from the thorns. You must walk through the garden every morning, speak softly to the growth, but carry shears in your soul. Because not every vine deserves to climb, not every voice deserves to echo. Do not be afraid to clear what has overgrown. The clearing is not the loss, it is the return. You are returning to yourself, to the truth buried beneath what the world planted in you without asking. Sometimes the weeds look like old beliefs, handed down through generations, worn like heirlooms. Stay small. Play safe. Don't speak too loud. Well, what's been passed down can be passed by. You don't owe your mind the lies it inherited. You owe it the love it never got. Oh, and don't you ever think your weeds make you weak. They just prove you are growing. The wildness of the mind means there is life stirring. But life without guidance, that's how fires start. The beauty of a garden is not in its wildness, but in its balance. Let your thoughts bloom, yes, but let them be chosen. Let them be pruned. Let them be nurtured with care and conviction. Because when you don't shape your mind, it shapes you. When you don't feed your spirit, it starves on scraps. When you don't watch the gate of your thoughts, enemies walk in dressed as old friends. Be vigilant, child, not anxious but aware. Watch what enters, watch what stays, and above all, watch what grows. You are not your thoughts, but you are the keeper of them. You are not your fears, but you are the soil in which they try to root. You are not your doubts, but you are the gardener with the power to pull them free. And when you do, when you walk tall among the flowers of your own making, when your peace is not just found but cultivated, when the wind blows and you do not break, that is when you will know the mind is not the master. It is the garden. And you, beloved, are the gardener. Uncontrolled thoughts birth chaos, not just in the world, but within the soul. And chaos, my dear, isn't always loud. Sometimes it tiptoes in. It sits quietly inside you. It doesn't scream. It simmers. It hides in the way your hands tremble when no one is looking, in the way your breath gets caught when a kind word comes your way. It's the tremor beneath the stillness, the storm beneath the skin. The world outside reflects what's been neglected inside. When the mind is a flurry of every passing fear, every unhealed word, every wound worn like second skin, then peace becomes a stranger and clarity a ghost. You walk through your days reacting, not responding, chasing, not choosing. Every thought that enters is allowed to sit, to speak, to settle. And before long, they're building homes inside you, shaping your world without your permission. An undisciplined thought is a spark in a dry forest. Just one can set the soul ablaze. And when the soul burns, it doesn't ask who lit the match. It just consumes everything. Joy, rest, purpose, tenderness, it makes no distinction. And so we wonder why our days feel heavy, why our nights feel restless, why our dreams feel distant. But child, it was never the world. It was the wildfire we left untended in the mind. Thoughts are not facts, but treat them like royalty, and they'll start acting like rulers. Give them power they haven't earned, and they'll lead your spirit like a tyrant. Some thoughts come dressed in pain, and still we cradle them. Others arrive cloaked in fear, and still we feed them. Not every voice in your head deserves an audience. Not every feeling deserves a throne. There is a difference between visiting emotions and those that set up camp, between a moment of doubt and a lifestyle of it. We've been taught to listen inward, but not how to sift. We've been told to trust our gut, but never to question which voice speaks truth and which speaks trauma. That's where the chaos hides, in the confusion between instinct and injury. The wound speaks, and we call it wisdom. The fear shouts, and we call it faith. But baby, true faith does not shake in the wind. It roots, it steadies. And the soul can only root in ground that's been cleared, tilled, and cared for. Now, I'm not asking you to silence your mind. No. That mind is a beautiful instrument, sharp, tender, quick. But even the finest instrument must be tuned. Even the sharpest knife must be sheathed. The goal is not to stop thinking, it's to choose what stays. Let the wild thoughts come, let them knock, but don't invite chaos in for tea. Don't set the table for fear and expect peace to dine beside it. You see, inner chaos doesn't just affect you, it spills into how you love, how you speak, how you rise. A mind untamed becomes a storm that touches every life it nears. That's why healing is never just for you. It's for all those who will feel your peace one day. When you still your spirit, you still the room. When your thoughts align, your world aligns. That's real power, not the kind that shouts, but the kind that holds steady when the winds come. Oh, and they will come. But when they do, and your thoughts have learned to bow to wisdom, not fear, when your emotions are honored but not obeyed, when your mind is a servant to your soul and not the other way around, that's when chaos has no place to land. That's when the world may rage, but you remain. That's when peace is no longer a visit, it is a home. So be gentle with your mind, but don't be passive. Speak to it, train it, tame it, teach it the sound of your true voice. Let it know you are in charge now. Not every thought gets to stay. Not every storm gets to rule. Discipline is the soul's true freedom. Structure is not a prison, but a promise. A promise whispered gently from your future self, saying, I will meet you there if you keep showing up. But we've been told the wrong story about discipline. Told it was a chain, told it was cold, stiff, lifeless, told it was the enemy of creativity, the killer of joy. But baby, that was never the truth. Discipline is not the jailer, it is the door. And on the other side is everything you've been dreaming of. Freedom, real freedom, isn't about doing whatever you want. That kind of freedom is short-lived, like wind without a direction. It blows here, then there, then nowhere. Real freedom is the ability to walk your path with clarity, to build something that lasts, to show up for yourself when no one is clapping. Real freedom is waking up without guilt because you kept your word. Real freedom is rest that feels earned, peace that doesn't vanish, joy that doesn't feel borrowed. Structure is not the enemy of the soul. It is the shape love takes when it wants to stay. Discipline is not punishment. It's devotion in motion. When you give yourself a rhythm, a routine, a ritual, you are not imprisoning yourself. You are honoring yourself. You are saying, I believe in my calling enough to show up even when it's hard, even when I'm tired, even when no one sees me. Discipline is a love letter to your future. It is consistency when motivation dies, and it always dies. But consistency, now that's a loyal friend. She shows up even when the fire dims. She keeps your hands moving when the soul feels still. She brings you to the page, the mat, the meeting, the mirror, not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. And there's something sacred in that. Sacred in deciding that you will be the one to carry the vision forward. Sacred in showing up at the altar of your own life with reverence. Sacred in choosing order over chaos, not because you fear chaos, but because you know your spirit cannot grow in the midst of it. Everything beautiful is built on rhythm, the tides, the heartbeat, the rising and the setting of the sun. The soul craves the same. But don't mistake discipline for rigidity. This isn't about perfection. It's not about never stumbling. It's not about becoming a machine. No, child, it's about trust. Trusting yourself enough to follow through. Trusting that structure doesn't box you in. It builds you up. Trusting that the repetition of showing up becomes the song your soul dances to. There is a melody in structure, and when you learn it, you move with grace, with purpose, with power. When the world around you spins, when the noise gets too loud, when the days blur into each other, it is discipline that calls you home. That daily promise, that steady hand that whispered, come back, come back, come back, and you do. You return to your breath, to your practice, to your work, to yourself, and each return makes you stronger. See, people think discipline is hard, and it can be, but what's harder is the weight of regret, the ache of knowing you had the chance, but you let it pass, the pain of quitting on yourself again and again. That's a deeper hurt, a longer sorrow. But discipline, it asks for effort up front. It asks for a little sweat, a little sacrifice, and in return, it gives you your life back. Discipline is choosing alignment over impulse, vision over comfort, legacy over laziness. And every time you choose it, something in you stands taller. Something ancient in your blood remembers who you were born to be. Something sacred begins to rise. So when you wake up tomorrow and the excuses come easy and the bed feels too warm and the fear too loud, remember, structure is not a punishment. It is a promise. You are not confined by it. You are cradled by it. And when you honor that promise day after day, you are not becoming less free. An undirected mind becomes a loud stranger, turning whispers into wars. It speaks in voices you don't recognize, wears masks you never made, and it walks through your spirit like it owns the place. It takes a passing thought, a soft whisper, an innocent flicker, and turns it into thunder. It builds battles out of shadows and arguments out of silence. You find yourself exhausted, not because of what's happening around you, but because of what's happening within you. The mind is meant to be a companion, not a commander. When it walks without guidance, it starts to take orders from fear. And fear, when fed, grows brave. It begins to shout where it once only murmured. That small question, am I enough? Suddenly becomes a declaration. You are not. That faint insecurity turns into a riot. The thoughts begin to circle, louder, faster, meaner, and soon they begin to sound like truth. But just because a thought is loud doesn't mean it's wise. Just because it repeats doesn't mean it's right. You see, when the mind isn't taught where to go, it will go anywhere. It will dig up old wounds just to feel something. It will make enemies out of loved ones. It will turn the present into a crime scene and call you guilty for simply existing. Not because the world is cruel, but because the mind has not been taught to soften its grip, to find its center, to be still. There is a violence in an undisciplined thought, a quiet, private violence. It doesn't leave bruises on the skin, but it bruises the spirit. It doesn't break bones, but it breaks trust in yourself, in others, in joy. It pulls you from sleep to replay old failures. It interrupts your peace just to question it. It whispers, "What if?" until that whisper becomes a roar, and suddenly you are fighting battles that don't exist outside your own head. This is what happens when the mind is left untended. It becomes a stranger, a saboteur. You don't even notice when it started happening because it didn't happen all at once. First, you ignore the discomfort. Then you avoid the reflection. Then you let one fear sit too long, let one doubt stay the night. And before you know it, you're living with a voice that no longer sounds like you. But you are not powerless. No, not at all. You are the home where the mind resides, and it is time to reclaim that space. You must turn toward your mind like a parent turns to a child, firm, loving, unafraid. No, you must say, you may not speak to me like that. You may not create war where there is no enemy. You may not rob me of the calm I've worked for. Directing the mind does not mean silencing it. It means guiding it, teaching it, bringing it back when it wanders. You must become the shepherd of your own thoughts. You must say, this way, not that way, here, not there, truth, not fear. And it won't always be easy. Some thoughts are loud because they've been alone too long. Some are wild because they've never been listened to. But even wild minds can be tamed. Even loud strangers can become old friends. If you sit with them, breathe with them, speak with them gently but with authority. Meditation won't silence your mind, but it will introduce you to it. Prayer won't erase your thoughts, but it will remind you who you are beyond them. Writing won't always fix the noise, but it will give the noise a name. And once something has a name, it can no longer control you in the dark. Because when the mind is directed with intention, with compassion, with clarity, it becomes an ally. It begins to serve, not sabotage. It becomes a translator for the soul instead of a megaphone for the ego. And suddenly, the whispers are just whispers. Not wars, not monsters, just passing breezes in a quiet, sacred room. You are not your thoughts, but your thoughts shape your world. And it is your sacred responsibility to choose which ones to follow. So when the stranger gets loud, do not fear him. Sit him down. Ask him what he needs. Tell him where you're going. And take your mind, your beautiful, brilliant, once wandering mind, home. Stillness is power. Learning to sit with yourself is where the taming begins. In a world that measures worth in motion, in speed, in noise, the idea of simply being feels radical, almost rebellious. But oh child, the truth has always whispered through silence. It is in the stillness where we meet what we've been running from. And it is there, in that brave, quiet place, where the wildness of the mind begins to soften, begins to bow. Most people fear stillness not because it's empty, but because it's full of everything we've avoided. The words unspoken, the feelings unfelt, the thoughts unchecked. We think we are too busy to pause, but often we are just afraid to witness ourselves. We fill our lives with distractions and call it duty. We stay moving, scrolling, talking, consuming, because if we stopped, if we really stopped, we might hear what our soul has been trying to say all along. But stillness is not absence. Stillness is presence, amplified. It's the moment when you turn the volume down on the world so you can hear the truth of your own breath. It's not an escape from life. It is the entrance into it. You do not find peace by pushing life away. You find it by sitting gently in the middle of your storm and saying, "Here I am, still listening." The taming begins there, not with force, but with presence. not with punishment, but with permission. You do not need to conquer your mind like an enemy. You need to invite it to sit down beside you and breathe. The mind wants direction, not domination. It wants to be seen, not silenced. And when you offer stillness, you are offering it space to rest from the endless spinning it's grown used to. Oh, the mind will resist at first. It will twitch and wander and question. It will try to fill the quiet with to-do lists, with guilt, with memories. That's natural. The wild always runs before it settles. But the discipline is in staying, sitting, breathing, coming back again and again. You are not failing when the mind wanders. You are growing stronger every time you return, because there is strength in not reacting. There is power in pausing before you speak, in breathing before you judge, in choosing stillness over spiraling. The world will pull you in 1,000 directions. It will demand your attention, your energy, your soul. But stillness is where you gather what the world tries to scatter. It is the act of reclaiming your center, not because it is convenient, but because it is necessary. We live in a time where everyone wants to be heard, but few are willing to listen, especially to themselves. But learning to sit with yourself, to really sit without distraction, without judgment, is the deepest kind of listening. It is saying, you matter enough to be heard. You are worthy enough to be witnessed. And when the soul feels heard, it stops screaming. When the heart feels seen, it stops aching. When the mind feels safe, it begins to calm. Stillness is not the absence of movement. It's the fullness of intention. It's the sacred moment when you stop doing and start being. It is where awareness begins, and from awareness comes wisdom. You can read every book, attend every seminar, speak every affirmation, but if you cannot sit with yourself in the silence, all the knowledge in the world will stay on the surface. Sit with your breath, with your heartbeat, with your sorrow, with your joy. Watch how thoughts rise and fall like waves. Notice how nothing lasts, and yet everything matters. The practice is simple, but it is not easy, because you are not just facing your thoughts, you are facing your reflection, and you are choosing not to flinch. Stillness is how the soul stretches, how the spirit resets. It is not wasted time, it is woven time. Time where you remember who you are beneath the noise. And once you know that, once you feel it in your bones, no one can take it from you. Not the world, not your fear, not even your doubt. Victory begins not over others, but over the reckless fires inside. The world will try to tell you different, that winning means defeating someone, that success means standing taller than the next person, that strength is about conquest. But real victory, the kind that settles deep into your bones and makes peace with your soul, is never found on the outside. It starts in the quiet, burning places within, the wild corners, the unchecked urges, the restless storms. That is where the real battle begins. You see, inside each of us live fires. Fires of anger, of fear, of shame, of desire. And they are not evil, no, they are human, natural, ancient. They come from wounds and wants, from hopes unmet and hearts misunderstood. But when left untamed, these fires don't just burn, they consume. They burn bridges we needed to cross. They scorch love we were meant to receive. They turn our words sharp and our silence cruel. We lash out, not because others deserve the fire, but because we haven't yet learned how to cool our own flames. That's the truth many run from. It's easier to point outward than inward. It's easier to say they hurt me than to ask, why do I still carry this? But the fire is not theirs to carry. It lives with you. It breathes with you. And only you can decide whether it burns down your life or lights the way forward.